Well, 2 weeks in, the chaos continues. More swing thoughts this week. Malbon and Jason Day fit. Did it miss? Did it hit? Tiger and Nike are done. Who wins? Who loses? And we'll do a little Q&A session. Dropped a couple of questions on Instagram. You guys were really curious around Jason Day and what other brands we want to see on the PGA Tour this year. So we'll answer those next. All right, so the PGA Tour season officially kicked off last week at the Century, and the day one headline was all about Jason Day's pants. I'll keep this brief, but Twitter had an absolute heyday. The amount of MC Hammer images I saw in my feeds was at an all-time high. I think all the beef and hysteria around this man's pants just reaffirmed what a lot of folks, including myself, have been saying and talking about for a really long time, and that is golf has been stale for way too long. And if we're being really honest too, what Jason wore wasn't actually that crazy. It's just a chino pant and a cotton peak polo. That's it. That blew Twitter to pieces, or X, whatever you're calling it these days. And the commentators could barely handle it. I will say, though, that the DeWalt and Motive, I brought this up last week on the pod, but those marks, those are going to be tough all season long. Unfortunately, that's just going to be a mad eyesore. I think it's just something that Malbon team will have to work around, which sucks. But overall, the look was super refreshing. I think just something different than performance pants that seem to have gotten tighter and tighter over the years to a level you can't convince me these guys are comfortable in, especially when it starts to heat up and stuff and there's zero room to breathe. It's just not a good look. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it was well beyond time for a change. And now it's a wait and see moment for who will rock the relaxed fit next. The tour these next couple of weeks is super heavy West Coast. So a lot of California stops, and Waste Management Tour is in Scottsdale mid-Feb. So we'll see how much of an influence Jason will actually have on the rest of the field. But also just know that the heavy hitters, Nike, Adidas, UA, are super performance heavy. So don't expect things to change up a lot. Speaking of change, though, like I mentioned last week's pod, the wild, wild west of golf endorsements just hit a new gear this week. Let's talk Tiger and Nike next. Nike and Tiger Woods are done. Something that has gotten increasingly frustrating over the last couple of years has been the cryptic language athletes and brands have been using. It seems like a lot is trying to get said without saying anything at the same time. I get why it's happening. In most cases, there is just an absurd amount of money to be made, and all that could be put into jeopardy nearly instantly if something is said or taken out of context, with how modern media hit a global audience as quickly as it does. So you're somewhat forced to protect your long-term image, which I get, and in doing so, athletes kind of have relied on PR and communication teams to write for them. And then from that, you just get these weird cryptic statements that leave you sometimes a little bit more confused and also trying to fill in the gaps. So people like me or you probably been trying to poke holes in the actual Tiger statement. And I've seen stuff from this is a PR stunt, the solo stove and Snoop Dogg, when Snoop said he was done with the smoking and then followed up with an ad for solo stove. But I would say the most realistic signs point to TaylorMade. Everybody is kind of, I don't know, positioning it as that. So I think it would make the most sense. They don't do footwear, so I think letting them allow FootJoy own that doesn't take away from them jumping into apparel and serving up a Tiger Woods line. Tiger does own all the TW marks, which is pretty unique. I would hope that the TW logo continues. It's a way stronger mark than his Tiger Woods Venture logo that he has, which is super corporate. I would assume he continues to wear red, which obviously marries well with the TaylorMade brand. The only other two scenarios I see would be Grayson or Tiger creating his own brand similar to what Tom Brady has done with the Brady brand. Tom and Tiger did play together in that celebrity match a while back, and who knows the conversations that they had back then around TB12 or the Brady brand. I just don't know if at this stage in his career, Tiger would really want to chase down owning his own brand. Jordan Rogers talks about this a lot, but Tiger is not that new gen type of athlete that live for and through social media. I mean, the dude is almost 50 years old, who's been through a wild amount of like legit surgeries and a pretty long career when he's the face of a global sport. And to think like he would just want to start his own brand at this age is kind of wild, especially with Charlie like right behind him. So again, that leaves Grayson, who was spotted on Charlie during the PNC championship. And Larry Fitzgerald had a shout out to Charlie, welcome to the Grayson family on his IG, which then was quickly deleted. And since then, it's been like crickets from Grayson. So again, like I said, like it's a real wild, wild west situation, and it's going to continue. As I would imagine, Nike would get very selective on who they re-sign once their contracts is over. So like their current big five with Nike are Nelly, Tommy, Rory, Brooks, and Tony. Nelly being like the most recent athlete who signed back in 23, a multi-year deal. Not sure how many years a multi-deal is, but Brooks and Tony both signed in 2016. Rory was like 2013 and Tommy was like 2010-ish, I want to say. Maybe. So, I mean, it's been a long time with him, but my best estimate guess for how all these unfold is Nike retains that roster through like their current agreements. And depending on how Live and the PGA Tour merger unfolds, like these athletes will probably listen to other offers. I would bet Nike continues to offer golf athletes like VIK deals with limited cash, if any at all. Basically, with the VIK, you get access to like an elite account, have some light contract obligations to wear apparel and footwear, and obviously like no competitor products. But I don't think Nike leaves golf entirely like a lot of folks are saying. I think they just continue to serve core lines. And again, like them having these athletes through VIK, they would also wear other branded pieces beyond just what's offered in them through the Nike like golf category. But in general, though, like the Tiger news does suck. I don't think the scenario to have a Tiger brand within like the Nike category, like Jordan brand, ever made any sense. I talked about this on the last week's pod, but the cultural currency basketball holds is significantly more valuable than golf. And I would bet the moments that Nike pushed Tiger specific apparel within the category, it didn't perform well enough to entertain the conversation to branch out a Tiger brand. Like the golf pie is way smaller than the basketball or running pie. So yes, you have like a multi-generational type of talent, but it's just, I don't think it just was worth the squeeze. And also, if you give Tiger a brand, do you also give like Cristiano a brand too? What about LeBron? Like you just open up yourself to these unwanted debates between athletes and agents and the brand when, and again, like that, it's just a conversation that I don't think you want to get stuck having. Like when I was on campus, when I worked for Nike, there was always this sentiment and language around nobody is bigger than the brand. And that was basically to protect both internally and externally the longevity of the brand and to give the brand the flexibility to evolve when necessary. If you tie yourself too much to the athlete, you also have to ride with that athlete through every chapter. And we've learned through the years, like athletes are people. People make a lot of daily decisions, and sometimes those decisions and dirty laundry get shared all over the internet. So yeah, I mean, it's in Nike's best interest to see things from a bigger point of view. And the last note I have is like, do you really, really, like honestly, really, really see yourself rocking Tiger golf gear 5 to 10 years from now? Like, especially with all the other energy that's in the space today, like things are just different. That's okay. Like, it's interesting, but things are definitely different. But who wins? Who loses? I think it's a win-win for both parties. I think, again, Nike continues to get to evolve and plan their next move. I think Tiger gets to navigate his next chapter, wherever that is. Also knowing, again, like I mentioned, Charlie could very well be next up, and he's not too far behind. So there could be a decision made just knowing that is also in line with whatever he wants to do with his future too. But let's jump into some Q&A that I got on Instagram, some interesting questions that popped up that I think are related to a lot of these points here. All right, I dropped a note on the IG story about doing a Q&A session. So let's jump in a few of those questions because they're pretty relevant to what's been happening, like kickstart the year. The first question, by far, like the most popular, 20 to 30 people, I don't know, people ask, so I can't like credit any single person, but the question is essentially like, outside of Malbon, what other brands would you like to see pop up on tour? I'll start with something I really do not want to see. That's bad footwear customs. When Phil stepped out in those shoe surgeon customs, they were these like Travis Scott fragment inspired AJ1 lows with the crocodile treatment. Absolutely awful. It has nothing to do with Phil. Anybody could have worn those and they would have gotten the same treatment. Like, you can't pull that many creative elements into a custom and it turn out good. I get the same like gross feeling when people customize their white Air Force Ones with Supreme and Louis Vuitton. It's so bad. I hate it. But what I would like to see, it's a tough question just because like you also have to be realistic. Like I mentioned, the player endorsement policy makes things kind of difficult to imagine something wildly different or unique. Selfishly, like I would love to see Stussy. I'd love to see Palace. I think Metalwood, Manners, Students, these up and comers that crank out really great work would be super dope. It's hard though because I think you need an athlete that also matches the same energy from that band, which I don't know if that energy is on the tour quite yet. Maybe it is, and they're like kind of hidden behind the media blanket, but this sport is so unique in that these athletes are clawing and scrapping to get their cards just to then have to continue to fight to score well to financially fund like their professional endeavor. So what Liv did do with the blank check strategy took a little bit of like the competition percentage and moved it to the entertainment bucket, which in theory you would hope you get an athlete that can bring a little flair to the sport. But again, golf historically has been a really bland from an athlete perspective. Like how much longer can we talk about John Daly? There's some youngsters, Minwoo, Akshay, like Thagala at times, like they could fill the gap, but they also got to be winners too. So I think things could really open up once the tour and Live figure out whatever that future looks like. Next up, Kent W asks, would love to hear how much you think YouTube golf affects brands. Example, Good and Callaway. Look, the YouTube golf conversation has really been ramping up. I think in part because of creators like Good, but also what like Foreplay is doing. It's a completely different form of entertainment. The psychology behind why we love these creators is the same reasons why we binge watch our favorite TV shows. Like you fall for these characters because they're likable, they're way more accessible, their output is substantially higher. Content creators like make their living entertaining you and me. Athletes make their living competing on the biggest stage. Like there's a natural element of entertainment that comes from that, but the priority is competition, competing and winning, not making sure you and I are like entertained. That's on the networks. You combine that with us as like consumers pivoting our purchasing behavior more towards what our favorite follow on social is rocking, rather than like the be like Mike era. Social media has just like reset how we think about athletes and products, especially in golf, because there is that like cookie cutter aspect of the sport. Where with basketball, as example, like you have amazing talent, you have a wide variance of personalities and product that speaks to those personalities. I think the best scenario for a brand is to have like a little bit of both. The tour presence brings a layer of authority, which is cool, and the creator provides you with consistent content that is just more relatable to your target market. So, but yeah, let's wrap it up there. I mean, we're not even 2 weeks into the new year and things are already cracking. This low key is a nice week of golf drops too, so keep an eye out for Friday for those. But yeah, I think we'll catch you in the next week. Peace.